Item on our agenda are the consent agenda items. We've got first item, minutes of the previous two meetings, meeting on the May the 21st and on June the 10th. The Chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. Any additional discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on consent agenda, we all were sent the 2024-25 student handbook and the student code of conduct. Any discussion, changes, considerations people may have on those?
This is not a legislative year, so there's not a whole bunch of changes. There's no changes to the code of conduct, but I'd welcome any comments or questions you guys have.
Is there anything you want to work on that policy?
On
discipline approaches?
Not necessarily in the handbook. We're going to continue to work on our discipline policy, and already with the principals, we're talking through procedures and tracking better on our discipline policy. Is there anything specific that you're thinking of, Mr. B?
No, but I'm advocating that we actually start. Again, I've said this before. I think that if you can't teach in a discipline class, you can't teach.
Correct.
Because you're dealing with 2 or 3 kids that don't have any self-discipline. I would figure out something to dump it back on the parents.
Yes.
Okay. Or create a special class and
yes.
Mrs. Brown has gone through some of this.
Yes.
And I think that from what I've seen come out of the state in the last couple things we've looked at, they've actually pushed some of those responsibilities back to the individual school districts. So we have some wiggle room in there.
Yes.
And I think we should take it.
I think that all of the wiggle room is something that doesn't have to be addressed in the handbook. There's something that we can wiggle as much as we want. The handbook to me is the minimums, and that's what we have in this one. These are the minimums that we have to state that we are going to follow and do. Those wiggle room parts, they're still accessible to us, and we'll be doing the wiggles,
Well, I think
so to
I think we
speak.
should, because coming back, I was listening to some talk going on New Mexico schools,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the stuff going on in those classrooms up there. And I'm not sure it doesn't go on somewhat here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we look at the academic results, we look at that. I don't know how you teach in a classroom that's out of control.
Correct.
Mexico's like dead last in education.
Yes.
Basically
So we don't want to go there.
state.
That's correct.
Well, and I would say that on the whole, our classrooms, having been in several systems and having talked with people around the state, our kids are great kids, and none of our classrooms really are out of control. We do have the 1 or 2 that, like the first grade classroom you mentioned earlier.
Did I mention that? I'm sorry.
You'll occasionally get a classroom like that when all of a sudden, all of a sudden a mixture of kids you didn't anticipate gets put in a class, and you can work through that situation the next year by dividing up those kids, et cetera. Our kids are really good kids, and with our code of conduct is really the code of conduct and the parent student handbook are really only as good as they're enforced. And so a lot of that wiggle room and all of that, some of the follow through on these policies really is up to us as administrators. And if we write it down, we've got to follow through and enforce it. What we have in the parent student handbook is minimums. And I think we go above and beyond some of those minimums, especially in our discipline. Our kids are held to account. And I think that every class or every school anywhere will struggle with a few. But overall, we just have those few. The rest of our kids are outstanding. I mean, I really do.
It doesn't take one or 2 in a class to
And that's true.
change the whole thing.
That's true. Myself and our administrators will be working hard to address each one of those situations so that all the other kids have a good learning environment.
Yes.
if I can say that.
That's right. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome any other questions or comments. Thank you, Mr. BA.
Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the student handbook and student code of conduct for 24-25 as presented. Moved and seconded to approve the 24-25 student handbook and student code of conduct. Any additional discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, everyone.
Now on to discussion or action items. All right, took care of diesel bids. Item B has one of the wonderful acronyms that we always have in education. Consideration of possible action to approve the 24-25 District Texas Teacher Evaluation and Support System, the T-TESS. And we have material on that.
There.
88 and 89. Mr. Brown, do you have comments?
For those, I will defer to Mrs. Hale at the end of the row there, except
Dr. Hale.
Dr. Hale, excuse me.
I'm not using the D word.
I didn't.
started it.
Ooh, I'm gonna. This is going to cost me. I think. Other than to say that this is a routine thing that you guys will see every year. It's up to you to set these dates. So
Because
Dr. Hale.
let me ask you a couple questions here. Are we scheduling evaluations? Do we give everybody prior
Their full
knowledge?
evaluation, yes, so they are scheduled. Walkthroughs are not scheduled, but their full evaluation is scheduled. And it has to be.
Has to be
It's
because
required. Law.
law or EA fund?
I mean,
TA legislature.
probably Texas Administrative Code, I think, or something like that. It's DEA.
Okay, I just was wondering about effectiveness there. The second question, I started thinking about this. As far as new teachers and mentoring in the classroom, how are we handling that? Do we get new teachers coming in? I mean, we've got some great experienced teachers in the system. Do we do mentoring where we can get people past
Yes.
the green first year jitters or whatever?
Every new teacher is assigned a mentor. I'll tell you my experience. Sometimes teachers always find a mentor. It may not be the one that's assigned.
Sure.
The ones that is assigned do get a small stipend for helping those teachers through that first year. I know that Mrs. Little at the high school is taking some more intentional efforts at this. She's going to be meeting with new teachers once a month over some specific topics, things like classroom management, things like lesson plans, to do some really purposeful training. So I give her, and this is her initiation. I give her some kudos for that and want to support her in that. But for the most part, some of especially in the elementary, they'll have a mentor, but their grade level will be that support for them. Their grade level team that they plan with will be a support for them to try and carry them through. So, but we're always trying to find ways to support our new teachers. Good question. Any others?
Other questions? This does require a motion.
Motion to approve
Motion to
T-TESS.
approve the calendar. The dates that are
Motion to
provided.
approve the T-TESS calendar.
Yes.
Good job.
Would that be a motion?
That would be a
That
motion.
would be a motion. Do we hear a second? Second. Move to second.
Leave me hanging.
Don't leave me hanging. It's been moved and seconded to approve the T-TESS calendar for 24-25 on the dates that are presented here and with specific appraisers that are listed. Any additional discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item, consideration of possible action on cafeteria meal prices. We got a handout from Ms. Walker earlier. And recommendation from food service and superintendent. was 328, which is a 10-cent increase. What would be the desire of the board?
Motion to accept 328. Okay.
It's moved to set the price at 328. Is there a second?
Second.
We moved and seconded to set school lunch prices for the upcoming school year at 328. Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Brittany, you're watching that big budget, right? I'm gonna look at inflation.
Item D, consideration of possible action on recommended stipends and salary schedules, which we were all presented earlier. Do you have any comments on that, Mr. Brown?
Yes, I would just like to recommend to you guys as presented. This is essential for us to approve so that our incredible CFO, Ms. Mraz, can begin really getting serious about budgeting. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 77 to 82% of our budget is personnel, and this is these are the numbers she uses to develop that. So I recommend this to you as presented.
What kind of budget impact is it with these numbers?
It's not significant. Generally, it's more significant if you add what we'd like to add, a more veteran teacher. They're going to come in closer in the 60s, whereas if you add an uncertified teacher, they're start at 38,000. So those are kind of the things. Those impact me or the budget a lot more than a stipend does.
That's what I'm worried about.
Other questions, comments?
Recommendation, that's your recommendation.
A recommendation.
Move to approve.
Moved to second to approve the salary and stipend schedule as presented to the board. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Well, here's a cool one.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are watching online. You got to pay attention to this one, right?
Yeah.
Consideration of possible action on Ockaltree County emergency resolution. So, tell me about that, Mr. Brown.
I don't know tons about it other than I think Ms. Mraz and Mrs. Smith could tell us more about this. But this is a plan that I think it's developed through the county. It's their emergency response. It's before you guys. They've spent probably, I guess, 6 months to a year working on this.
It's like,
What's it for?
Yeah.
like a disaster
Even-
in the county.
Yes.
With each different disaster.
It's before you.
Tornado response?
I believe we met on it even before that. I think they have to update it every 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're involved because we use our buses for evacuation.
Yeah. And our facilities.
And
Yes.
people.
And so we're required to approve it as one of 3 agencies in the county. The county, the city, and the schools have to approve this plan. They've involved us. I mean, we had a meeting, back in April, I think, all together where they asked us about our buildings and can we use this, and we gave them the input they needed. And so they have finalized the plan. I think the county approved it this morning. It's before you guys tonight, and I'm not sure when the city's working on approving it, but they're just asking that us as one of the agencies that are required to approve it, that we approve it.
And the key part, tell me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
if we have an approved hazard mitigation plan through FEMA, we are then eligible for FEMA grant money if any is available. Or
Correct.
FEMA funding if any is available. Without it,
Correct.
that's not eligible.
Yes. Thank
So
you,
My
Mr.
question was,
Beal.
Wes, have you read this?
No, I have not, because the only thing that we have is the approval process. Is there a discussion, or does the plan describe? I have not seen the plan.
I think it was in the email, but it was like 12 attachments down. but we got the paper copy.
Yeah,
I
missed
accidentally
that
clicked
one.
on it, otherwise I wouldn't have known. I was
I
like,
missed that one. So no, I have not.
I
so
scanned
there
through the
are-
first page.
Well, I only ask
Occasional
that for
things I don't read
entertainment.
before we get here. That's one of them. But what we have.
Miss Moraz probably knows it better than any because she was in the meetings. Is there anything that you were concerned about?
I just heard there might be a grant for
Yeah.
things we needed.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's the 2023.
This one actually is 2024. That was changed and sent to you earlier.
Yeah,
That's right.
Earlier.
That's right. We got that today.
Yes.
Four.
Yes.
There. And what we are looking for is, if you turn to page 110, is the resolution that is before the board to be considered and potentially approved.
Whereas.
Mhm.
Motion to approve? What we need?
Need a motion, and if we do need a motion to approve the resolution, because it is an official resolution.
Emergency resolution.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to
Y'all are
approve.
killing me.
You guys are killing me here tonight. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. I will forego reading of the said resolution if somebody wants to read it.
Oh,
We'll provide
shucks.
it. Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Possible action or revision of policy BE, and then we'll get to the big policy. I think BE is on the next page, on page 111.
So this is not a part of the big policy update. This is a specific policy we want to revise, and this is what I discussed with you guys at the last meeting about moving our regular meetings to designated as the third Monday of the month rather than the fourth Tuesday of the month. There's just less conflicts on Monday than there is on Tuesday. Mostly, we have some athletic events on Tuesday, not as many on Monday. Usually most conflicts we have is having to move because of holiday, and I think there was only 1 or 2 dates throughout the year that we'd have to do that, one date. So it's just less conflicts. So I recommend it for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to change the wording of policy BE local. Our regular meeting date will be the third Monday of each month at 6 p.m. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now the fun one. The
Whee!
tabs, y'all. And yes, Richard, I did read this one. I do have a couple of things I wanted to bring up, and one of which Mr. Brown had already seen on page 134. The changes proposed by the big dogs
Aren't wrong.
took out the words in-district vehicles for any of our guardians. That does not need to be taken out of our policy.
Correct.
So that would be the first change from what you have in front that I would recommend. To scratch that. Put it-
Scratch
or
the
put it-
scratching?
Scratch the scratch and put it back in.
And I believe there is that policy. It has been in an individual copy that I brought before you. That has been already put back in.
On page.
Next tab.
136 is from one page over, the technology resources equipment. Short little policy here, CQC local, but it refers to what Sarah's holding there, which is kind of a strange little document that TEA put together by some person with access to a lot of different references on things.
Google, they have access.
And my thought was, rather than it being a requirement, change the word shall to may. The superintendent may follow it. Allows discretion of Mr. Brown to look through the TEA document, and if something doesn't fit for our district. There's a lot of that is educating teachers and parents and kids on proper posture while using a computer. It's a weird little document.
And about kids spend too much time on computers. TEA is the one wanting to test third graders on a computer and teach them to use said computer. So,
Back to this one.
and then they have unhelpful crafts.
And y'all know which word I searched for. Let's go to page 153. Then on the bottom, on number 5, the original wording of this document says. There you go.
You didn't know what the word was
No,
going
I
to
knew what it was. It also had global perspective, so we got a twofer on that.
Oh.
It says offer a global perspective that promotes equity of
I
access.
did
My
highlight that.
suggestion is to start the removal process at the word A, take out a global perspective that promotes equity, and just insert the word ease. Offer ease of access to our library materials. And then just for regular reference, there are 2 different sections that I think all of us need to go back and reread. One is on personnel management relations, policy DGBA. And then at the end,
page you looking at?
DGBA starts on page 139.
The 143.
Just for,
And then from 161 to the end, it just talks about the grievance policies. And I think it's something that we all need to remain cognizant of what the actual policies are that we have. So when we have, which is something that happens when we have parents or personnel or community members that come to us with questions, what the actual policy is, so we have it. This is a pretty good little layout of level 1, 2, and 3 on there. So I would recommend that y'all take some time and read through those. They're all 3 about the same. They just address personnel, kids, parents, community members, that type of thing.
can the whole process take like almost 90 days?
Again, with all of
I was adding it up going, oof.
with
Yes.
all of the dates and from when things have to be
Filed
responded to,
and then 10
it
days, and
certainly
then 10
can.
days, and then 10 days.
Certainly can. But those are the 3 suggestions that I would have on those. So for those, all the others that have read every word that was there, what changes would you all suggest?
I've got mine.
I want a definition of the word reconsideration on library materials.
What page?
157, it's used multiple times,
Yeah.
but really starts over on instructional resources, library materials. And so it sounds like a procedure here to, if it deals specifically with, I think originally from parents complaining to something in the library materials,
And to have a committee that does that.
a reconsideration committee,
Yeah.
meaning I'm going to put the book back in, or whatever the media is,
Yeah.
back in consideration. Seems like a great deal of great deal waste of time. But reconsideration would come from a protest that something was removed or not removed.
I think it would be just a protest over any specific item that was in the library. So reconsideration of its placement in the library is what I would define it as.
So you can't, as an administrator, I won't
Yeah.
throw a book out of the library.
No, I think you can. As an administrator, I can help selection or choose a book to be off as an administrator.
It's hard
But then that could also mean, someone could have a reconsideration committee about that to add it back in. I mean, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my point. Is it just seems like
I don't
I don't know what
see
you
it.
throw. I don't. Go ahead, Wes. I'm sorry.
I see it the opposite direction on how they're defining reconsideration on page 156. Because there's an informal reconsideration to start. When the district or campus receives an objection
Yes.
to the appropriateness of a library material, the appropriate librarian or administrator shall try to resolve it informally. So that's saying that it's reconsideration, reconsidering that the book is already there or that the material is already there. It's not reconsidering bringing it back after it's been removed. It's reconsidering placing it in the first place. And then once the informal consideration from the librarian or the administrator, then it goes to a formal request, just like the levels of a complaint or a grievance, and then a committee is put together to be able to.
Well, when I got back on the school board, I took a reading list out of the library and went through and I screened the books. But the trouble is, I screened titles. And I was looking for 2 or 3 books that are legendary in some of these debates.
To kill a mockingbird type of thing.
Yeah, like one of the real evil ones. And still, as you're aware, there's been a couple books have slipped through. We've had parental complaints on.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Which
think the
then
intent.
we're taken care of with an informal reconsideration.
Informally.
An informal reconsideration, yeah, which is the right way to handle it. It just looks like
Right.
It just looks like an escalation. They didn't want reconsideration, how far they could go with it.
All the way to see what Justice Thomas has to say.
So back on page 119, you've got CPC legal, and it's office management, records management.
Page 119.
It's a legal policy,
Mm-hmm.
Can't change.
which we can't change. But I wanted some definition there of. Is the way we handle, say, for example, personnel records, is that dictated by law?
Other than the fact that they're confidential, yes. The fact that they are confidential because they're personnel records is dictated by law. The procedures that we use in the office
Yes.
to handle it, that's our own decision of how we handle that. We're just required to make sure they're confidential.
Okay, and I guess I would ask how we do that, because I can tell you, I think there's been some violations of confidentiality.
So I think that we have some of those concerns. I think we have shored up.
Okay.
We do
Well-
keep them. We do keep them in the safe, and there are 2 ladies that I know of. Three ladies that I know of. 2 of them have to get in that safe every day, and those personnel records every day. Yeah, and
Liliana.
yes, and I can't even open that safe. I've tried. So when it's locked, it's solid.
When you
Now,
start
signing-
looking like a long timer,
What's that?
they'll give you a key.
Well, I had the whole stethoscope thing and everything trying to get that thing open, but no, it's
I just want to make sure that issue is addressed, because we've talked
Yes.
about this. We've
Yes.
talked about this where we've actually had some issues here,
yes.
and obviously, even with the whatever happened with it,
Mhm.
the other question is then a lot of those records are digital.
Mhm.
How do we preserve those?
Secure those.
How do we secure those? I'm sorry.
I don't know how much of them are digital. I think mainly ours are from paper. We haven't digitized personnel records. We do now. If we're sending them to our attorney, they do go through our system. But even if you were to public information request that, we would still redact it because it's confidential. Which records are you thinking of that might be
Nothing
digitized?
we're going to discuss here.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it's secure, because if you look at it from a corporate standpoint,
Mhm.
where nobody gets access to their own personnel files.
Correct.
You can't walk in and get access to your own personnel files.
Correct.
So because that's a source of lawsuits and everything else, you're allowed to do that. And you
Yes.
start altering files. I mean, that's
Yes.
a source of lawsuits. So my point being is we need to have it locked down, where we need to have it treated like most of the corporations do, where we don't have access. Somebody can walk in and just pick up a file.
Mhm. I think we have that in place.
Okay.
Whenever I needed a file, honestly, I ask Liliana to go pull it. And Liliana, Lisa, and Nancy.
Oh, is that where you were up there?
Yeah, I know you saw the safe open. I was in the safe when Brian said, I don't see. That's why the door was open. I wasn't there.
I was tempted to go in and ruffle through a few things.
They do keep the safe open when they're sitting at the desk. They close it when they leave if they're not at the desk, or if somebody's not in the safe.
Can we ask? I know I was on vacation.
Mhm.
If we've got any means to do that for digital records, and I don't think you're right. I do think there are
Okay.
digital personnel records that are swapped between people as they're doing something. And
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look into that.
In particular to this CPC legal change on here, recommends back or references back to 13 TAC 7123C, which no longer exists. That's what the change is, because I just looked up 123C. It only goes to B now on Texas code. So they deleted it and they changed the legal, so it didn't refer back to that. On that specifically,
It just
your initial question.
tagged something in
Jogs
my
your memory.
memory that needed to do, so.
That's what we talk about.
Okay, I have a issue on 175, which I talked about this policy with the library books and everything. When someone makes a request for reconsideration, the form shall be provided on 175, or sorry, 157.
Okay.
Oh,
157.
Oh, she's dyslexic. This
Only
explains a
with
few
numbers.
things now.
Only with numbers. I was a terrible catcher, After a request for reconsideration form is submitted, the form shall be provided to the superintendent and copies shall be provided to the librarian, the board, and any other staff. And then when it's all wrapped up on the next page, we don't get a copy of how it lands. And I just thought that was odd. I think it's the state trying to make us, feel responsible for all the library books and everything. But the fact that we get a copy of, there's a problem, but no resolution is kind of concerning. So it's like the fourth paragraph down, that the superintendent, librarian, and individuals submitting request and other appropriate administrators shall receive a copy of the committee's report, but we don't.
In the school librarian, they were submitting the request for reconsidering.
So either we don't need to know to begin with.
Would you
or we
like to
need
add the
find
board?
end.
If you're getting a copy of the initial appeal, I don't think I would mind adding the board to that, so that you guys can see the.
Yeah.
So the superintendent, school librarian, the individual submitting the request for reconsideration, right there, the board. Uh-huh.
Oh, let's see, EFP level.
Yeah, no worries.
Anything else? This is our chance, because legal we can't mess with. Local is.
Flush the whole thing.
Flush the whole.
Push the envelope
Push the envelope.
on all the local stuff where we're given some ability to do it.
Yep.
Make it fit.
That's our ability to do it. You hear lots of things about the most important offices, and I've heard multiple people talk about this, most important office in the United States of America, sitting right here around this table. Because of what we have the ability to influence, part of it's right here. That we have the ability to influence the local policies. We can't do sickum about what they do in Austin or Washington. But we can have an effect on what we do in Creighton, Texas. So
Sarah, you were gonna say something with cell phones?
That's coming
I'm
up
another
next.
line item.
that comes after this.
Oh, excuse me.
It keeps
I was
going.
looking forward to it, yeah.
There's one more item after we do this. So with the additions, and
Hand that to her.
change
And edits.
Policy update 123. The board has two choices. We can think about our additions, spend some more time on this and talk about it next month, table it for next month, or Chair would entertain a motion to approve with additions. Update one.
Sorry, good.
Oh, there's no.
Say that again, Jeffy.
Motion.
We have two choices. We can either table till next month and think about our additions and go more, or we can approve update 123 tonight. And if so,
With the changes.
we have a motion.
With the changes.
With changes.
We have a motion. I do not have a second.
You were recommending we all go back and go through the complaint process. Were you serious, or were you wanting us to try
No, I
to?
just say everyone should read that. That's my recommendation,
Ah,
board president,
not
my
for
fellow board
approval.
members. Go home tonight, tomorrow night, Saturday afternoon.
I will
Go
second
through the
the,
complaint process.
second the
refresh
motion.
yourself. So, we have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second to approve policy update 123. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Last item, discussion concerning student cell phone use and possession on PISD campuses. Sarah has been diligently gathering information on that. The floor is yours, Ms.
Can I
Gales.
have a mic that works? Ours is out of batteries. Yeah, they need batteries. Okay, so this started at the Canyon School Board Conference during a trustee breakout group discussion about bullying. And one of the other trustees said at their school to help with bullying at the junior high, they had banned cell phones. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. We talked about it on the way home. Well, my cell phone listened to me, and there on my Instagram feed was, I'm not kidding, someone talking about this article from Norway about the report on smartphone bans, student outcomes, and mental health that has come out kind of recently. And so what started out as a focus on bullying, actually it turns out it would have much broader positive effects on our whole student body. It's not necessarily a popular topic, but if anyone in the room thinks that cell phones are good for kids, go ahead and raise your hand now. Okay, but we all fight them because it's convenient for our kids to have phones, for us to be able to reach them, to get a hold of them, but they don't have to have a smartphone for that. So there's my little soapbox about it. But this research was, I gave y'all a copy of it in case we were here till midnight, but we're not, so I'm actually going to go through it. It's 700, there's the dyslexia, 477 middle schools, which were actually 8th grade through 10th grade, so it's a mix of our junior high and high school. And 161,000 students. But it was only for 2010 through 2018. So that's ancient in technology use standards. Like apparently YouTube is really popular now for teenagers to use. Like that's really high on the use according to Pew Research. And TikTok had not been around yet, and neither were smartphones. So I would argue that the use is more than actually it just showing in here. So for those of us that are not in the room and have a copy of this, the report is called Smartphone Bans and Student Outcomes and Mental Health by Sarah Abramson out of the Norwegian Institute of Mental Health. And the abstract explains it that smartphone usage affects well-being and learning among children and adolescents and is a concern for schools, parents, and policymakers. In her research paper, she shows banning smartphones significantly decreases the healthcare take-up for psychological symptoms and disease among girls. Post-ban bullying among both genders decreases. And additionally, girls' GPA improves, and their likelihood of attending a academic high school track versus a technical track increases. So these effects are larger for girls from low socioeconomic backgrounds. We are a Title I school. So that's a larger portion of our students than even are shown in this study. So some of it'll say it's more for low socioeconomic. That's us. So mental health was easy. 1 year into the cell phone ban, it eliminated one specialist visit. And then 3 and 4 years into a ban, general practitioner mental health visits decreased by 29% and specialist visits decreased by 60%, which was 2, almost 3 appointments to the doctor. So we're not paying for those, but it is a significant show that is an improvement in students' mental health. Bullying, which was where I started, decreases. 2 years into the ban, bullying for girls declines by, and it's all in standard deviations. I'm really sorry I couldn't translate it. 0.3 standard deviations. A full-time 3-year ban has a 0.42 standard deviation, which is 46% decreased reported bullying. Girls in a lower socioeconomic school declined by 0.58 standard deviations in 1 year and 0.99 standard deviations, a whole standard deviation in 3 years, which is really statistically significant. And we're a Title I school, so that's us. Boys decline bullying by about 43% 4 years post-ban, and actually where states pass laws to anti-bullying and the state's going to fix it and they pass laws, it actually helps about 8%, whereas this is showing 40-50% increases. So
I don't want to interrupt your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of those articles I did give you, I actually gave something.
Yeah.
You brought this up before, and this
Uh-huh.
is from National View. Results are mostly the same. they're mostly showing the same things.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my question to you, I'm not short circuiting.
Go for it.
Is one, I think I would look for teacher input here as far as the effect.
Yes.
And then the second thing is, I have no problem with this. I want them to take calculators out of the classroom years ago because kids can't do math in their heads anymore.
I can't. Don't tell my mom.
Yeah, probably me too for different reasons. But I think the results are there. But how do you? This is like one of you got the genie out of the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
How do you remove cell phones? If you can start with the small things. I don't know what you mean by bans, Sarah.
So that's coming to it. The type of ban is the last set of bullet points.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And our schools actually have a partial ban. So the junior high, from what I've been told by students, they can't have their cell phones. It's $15 if they get caught with them. So they have to be off. They have to be in their backpacks. They're not allowed to have them in class, but who can't hide something from the teacher? So it's still happening somewhat. And those are partially effective, but they can still have them probably in the hallways. The high school it's up to the teacher if the teacher wants to use it for instructional purposes, but generally don't have your cell phone out, but it's up to the individual teacher. I know the elementary school, Wright, had problems with students with the smartwatches that you can just text your parents, tell them where you are, telling their parents they were sick with their watches, not telling the nurse, not telling the teacher. Admin had no idea. Parent would roll up to pick their kid up from school because they were sick, because they had said, "Mom, I don't feel good, come pick me up." So they actually banned or took up the cell phones and watches because those parents know where their children are. They are at the school. They dropped them off. And then when you pick them back up, they can have the technology again. The ban is difficult. That's why we need to talk about it. This is just saying it is worth talking about. And then the best part, the educational performance, since we might need the help. And it's been all over the news. These bans have been all over the news. This is just for this specific actual report. It always sounds good, but for someone to actually put this much data into it, I believe it more than these are bad and social media is bad for kids. This is past social media is bad for kids. This is the actual physical presence of the phone in the school is bad for kids. So educational performance in girls improves to a statistical significance, but it is a lot more impactful in a lower socioeconomic school.
So social
Again,
skills would improve too.
It does, but that's not the focus of her study. So you get to the type of ban. It's the second page. I handed it out. Lenient. Phones are on silent or off in class. You can get them in between. So those are good for a lot of the things, but you get the most bang for your buck, especially for your educational performance, with a strict do not bring a phone to school, or it's taken up and locked up in these little cell phone lockers. They have yonder pouches, but there's a YouTube video about how to beat them. So it's not that effective. But if you physically take the phone or you don't bring it here, it's ours. And you don't get it back for $15, it's ours or whatever. Has a much larger impact in educational performance and test scores. There were a bunch of graphs with that paper. So I highlighted them pink so you could see, because they were really tiny. I tried to blow them up as big as I could. And it splits out the lenient and the strict ban types for girls and boys. And it shows that the improvements in GPA, teachers' grades, math exams, and their academic track is more significant with a strict cell phone ban. Just flat out, no phones. This is easy for me to say. I have little kids that don't have, my kid's going to be in first grade. It's easy to say, I'm not going to give her a phone. She couldn't use it at school anyway. Talking to the junior high and high school parents, this is a different conversation. We absolutely need admin and teachers behind us and with us on this. But showing them the why instead of the we're going to do this, how do we do it, might help with the impact. And I'm not saying we're going to. This is a group discussion.
It's almost a cultural change at this point.
It is a cultural change. And so I printed off a couple of things from Pew Research today, because this data from 2018, that's old in cell phone use time. So actually, one of these says teens who say they are online almost constantly has roughly doubled since 2014 and 2015. There's like 46% said they are constantly on their phones. And then the apps that kids use, that they're using YouTube all the time. And we know TikTok is on there, but I'd never thought of YouTube. and how many times they check it. I've almost constantly, several times a day. It takes 20 minutes to regain concentration if you are interrupted mid learning or project. So you ever been in a conversation, somebody's phone dings and you can't remember what you were saying? Imagine trying to learn algebra, calculus, and that happens. And someone in the class's phone dings and everybody's interrupted. So this is probably cheapest thing we can do to improve outcomes for our kids. It's very popular right now. LA just banned cell phones. They don't know how yet, so they'll be in the same boat. They have till the spring 25 to decide that.
I don't want to be
They
like
start-
Dallas. I don't want to be like LA.
I don't want to be like them. I want to figure it out first. They're the second largest school district. I know they're the second largest school district in the nation. The Surgeon General called for health warnings on social media users this last week. This book is on, school districts are suing social media companies for the expense of the mental health care for these kids and the counseling and services. And this book is The Anxious Generation. If you really want to watch a good TED Talk, it's not TED Talk, but he's on YouTube. It's been on the New York Times bestsellers list for 12 weeks, and it's number 3 on the Amazon sales chart. So this is a social change going on right now. The Anxious Generation, about what the loss of play, traditional play, and then the replacement of a cell phone based childhood is doing to our kids and creating, they're not growing up appropriately. And his very simple 4-point how to fix the world, number 3 is to ban phones in schools. There's no reason for them to have a device of distraction in their pocket, all of them all the time. Finding a way that our parents would be safe with this, going back to the 2000s when you had to call the school and leave a note and send a note to the teacher and come back. That happened like once when I was in school. It's very uncomfortable. We're used to knowing where everyone is all the time. But I would argue that this is something we should look into. There's a lot of other schools in the area that have done it.
Who's done that, Sarah?
I know Dalhart did it. You were saying Tascosa.
I don't know how long ago it's been, and I don't know if they're still doing it, but I know Tascosa did it. I would say 5 to 7 years ago, they were doing it.
No cell phone.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No cell phone.
No cell phone.
Doesn't
No
matter,
cell phones.
Kindergarten,
Yeah.
12th grade.
No cell
Well, this
phones.
was Tascosa High School, so.
Yeah. So
No
they
cell
would do it
No
by,
cell phones on campus, no cell phones.
and see the buses, and it's a very
No
complex
classroom, no
problem.
hall. I know Tascosa because I was talking to the coach there. No classroom, no hallways, no extracurricular stuff. That was different. But during the school day, no cell phones, except during lunch.
That ought to be some results we can look at.
Yeah. And so this data is a little old, but locally we could ask and see and look at the policies that other Region 16 schools have. And this is policy season. So, but if we want to make a change for this next school year, it's going to have to be pretty quick, or it just probably won't go into effect until the year after. But for just the decrease in bullying, because that is an ongoing problem that parents don't want to send their kids to school, and the mental health of young girls, and the social media makes it worse. If you can remove that, just the social media, for 8 hours a day, and then them from bullying each other through the social media at school, to have that big of an impact, I think would be silly not to look at it.
When you say look at it, this is what I said earlier, I would like to hear the educators' inputs here on how effective this would be. I don't disagree with the results. Look, I looked at it after you brought it up. But how do we do it? And then how effective would it be, Jeff?
It's hard. I talked to Sarah today about it. It's hard. Right now our policy at the high school, and this is the way it was when I ended, was it's at teacher's discretion. I know a lot of teachers that were hardcore, no cell phones in the classroom. For class, they don't need them. We're one-to-one Chromebooks. And I was telling Sarah, my class, I was teaching economics when I retired, and I was a paperless classroom. We didn't do anything on paper. It was all Google Classroom, Google Docs, Google Sheets, all of that stuff.
I would not have coped well, obviously.
So for that part of it, they didn't need their cell phone. They needed that Chromebook. And the problem you get into is with our kids, some of our kids is, I don't have my Chromebook, but I have my phone. They're going to have their phone with them. So then you chew on that kid, you know, why don't you have your Chromebook, or I don't have my charger or whatever, and you chew on him, and either you do or you don't let him use your phone, and then you find out that that's the kid that got off work at Sonic at midnight and tried to do his homework, and then he got up at 7 that morning and had to get little brother and sister ready for school because mom was already at work and he forgot his charger.
Right. So there are positives.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, do you let him use his phone? You know,
Do we have
Do you-
Chromebooks
do you
that
not?
we reserve
You
that teachers can check out for kids that don't have them?
Well, I don't think it's
I don't know.
Chromebook versus phone. I think what you're
Yeah.
bringing up is a bigger issue. And it's
It is.
cell phones in
Right.
effect. And I'll throw social media in there too. It's just destructive. But I think look at it, but I don't know what I actually don't know what to do about it. But I'd be interested in what Tesco's thinks.
yeah, I know there's
Mhm.
people that have done it, and like you said, are doing it. I personally think it's worth looking at. I didn't let kids use phones. That was me. I know there were a lot of other teachers that were like me. I know there were a lot of the younger generation teachers. They had their phones out all the time.
Mhm. Yeah. And then the concerning stories of kids showing other kids things they shouldn't be showing them at school. Not necessarily illegal, but like, and liability issues and the increase in GPA for girls and their testing increasing grades increase the most in math.
Question for both of our administrators here. What did you see in this, Miami, and what have you seen at Claude and maybe you?
You want to tackle it first?
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Sure.
It's-
I'm just
it
racking it
really
up
was a
tonight.
challenge. We had no cell phones in the classrooms, not out anywhere during the day, and then we were just constantly seeing like fighting the cell phone all the time. We would hear a second grader cell phone going off in their backpack that was disturbing class. So then it became, they turned them in at the beginning of each period. So we knew they didn't have them. Teachers had different ways. They would have them during passing period. So it wasn't, they at least, because they are addicted to them. So they
Yeah.
at least still could have them. So we weren't fighting them as often, except then it became, some teachers are better at enforcing policies than others. We'd walk in and a teacher was very adamant, that's the rule, we're following it. Another teacher, you'd walk in, it's like, where are all the cell phones? Oh, I forgot, have your cell phones. So it is just truly hard to tackle. And I think parents were mixed on it. Some parents want to be able to have that contact with their child all the time. And others of them were like, they're at school, I call the office if I need to get a hold of them or something. But it's not an easy thing to limit cell phones. In a
And some of these children that walk home after school, their parents say, my little girl walks home and I have contact with her during her walk home.
And they're
You know,
saying
way
they're
back.
not, so that's the solution to having a place to lock them up, like at the office. Our problem is our grade level schools are so big. I mean, high schools are dealing with it, but most junior highs aren't maybe necessarily as large as ours, and definitely not the elementary schools. So if you're dealing with 3 classrooms, we're dealing with 2.5 times that. To manage that cell phone intake is awful also.
Well, I think the parents are gonna be split 50-50.
Oh, I bet it's worse than that. I bet
I don't think it'll be 50-50.
it won't be 50-50. My sister, who's got little bitty ones, was like, that's never going to work. There, I was like, ooh, yours are
But I still think
not
there are
walking
people
yet.
out there who-
So what you-
With the backup of it, it's a distraction. It's bad for their grades. It's
Yeah.
bad for their mental health. And here's how.
Well, it could
But-
be something implemented bring it in through the elementary and let people get used to it. Or
It could.
Maybe. The junior
they've
high
never
seems
had
to
a-
already be
if
kind of
they've never
doing
had
it.
a different choice,
Yeah,
it's easy to.
that is true.
I
It sounds
will
like
say-
junior high is police.
I will say of our campuses, the junior high is pretty consistent with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say
It sounds like
they
they're shutting it
nearly
down.
have a cell phone ban.
And kids are resilient. I mean, if they'll be fine without a cell phone.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're gonna be all right.
They don't have signal on the farm anyway.
It'll be all right.
But the walking home, I understand that like concern, and if you're who's going on the bus today, or you're doing this, and I can't text my kindergartner, so I've had to use the OG system of calling the school or emailing the school and letting them know plans have changed. So and so is picking them up, or she needs to ride the bus. But I haven't been on the other side where I can just, so it's easy for me to say
I don't
this.
think we're saying we're gonna not allow them to have it with them, but we just find a way that maybe not in the classroom.
Maybe not in the classroom, not in the hallways.
Not sure that solves your bullying problem, because most of the bullying issues aren't typically in the classroom, from what I understand.
I think that's a cultural issue.
It's through
Yeah.
Snapchat of pictures taken of each other in the hallways or in classroom or whatever. No, we're not gonna. If this was a statistical major improvement, and that was my initial why I was interested in it, and this was Farwell. It's a tiny school, but they said it really helped at the junior high shutting the phones down, and I've heard that our junior high is doing better, and this is probably why I didn't know about the cell phones until I asked a junior high student. And she was like, "Yeah, we don't want to pay $15 to get her phone back."
I think a lot of
I've been watching this for the past couple years, actually, the research that's been coming out about cell phones, the effects on our brain, the effects of social media on our brain. And I would probably echo Mrs. Tregellis's concerns as far as kids and even on adults. They are an addiction, and there are physical, hormonal, brain chemical effects of cell phones in our brains. So I do think there is some value of limiting it, like the junior high has done. I think that I think there would be, should we ban it? I think the how is more the question. I think ultimately what we would want out of this is to limit the distraction and access that our students have during the school day, during instructional time, to cell phones, to smartwatches, to anything that's going to be a distraction. And so, I don't think it's a bad thing for us to explore. In Claude, when I was leaving Claude, we were banning cell phones. That's 115 kids. It's a lot easier to do in that smaller environment. And I'm not sure since I left if they've truly got it done, but we were talking pretty seriously about it because they were causing problems in class.
So let me make sure I understand. I mean, the ban word seems like one you're going
Yes.
to lightning. You're going to look at lightning strikes some of the parents, and the kids, some of the kids too. So would you call it, just rather than a ban, would you call it cell phone rules, some kind of
withdrawal?
I think yes.
Just structure a set of rules.
Possession or use policy.
This is what I think we should do with social media.
Limits.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the main line is going to be, if we're going to restrict it, I think we have to restrict it for all classrooms. Teacher discretion, I think, becomes a shotgun approach, and you're going to have kids. It still keeps it in their hands. I think where the line that we would have to look at seriously in our high school, and I think mainly this would be high school, is are they going to be allowed to have it during the passing periods? And I think that's where, for the most part, I think that's where the distraction comes, or it continues during those passing periods. I think when they're in class, I mean, they may be sneaking around to try and text their partner, their friend down here, but teachers are walking around. They've got them working. So I think the main issue for us would look at is what are we going to do in between? What are we going to do at lunch? What are we going to do in between classes? I would like to, if I may, take this discussion that you guys have had, let's bring it to our administrators and probably some teachers and talk about what could we do and how could we do it. Because I don't think it's a bad thing to really limit access to cell phones, smartwatches, anything that's going to be a distraction and could cause problems. I mean, I can tell you, I think anybody that's been an administrator in the past 10 years would tell you that social media causes a bunch of problems during the school day. If we could limit that, and that would be keeping kids off their phones, not letting them pick them up during the halls, not letting them take them to the bathroom.
That one. A lot more bathroom breaks apparently when you ban cell phones.
With administrators and teachers, we bring an outline of a policy back to us for our July meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we probably have some teachers that have issues with being on their cell phones.
I agree.
as well.
I agree.
You know, so I don't know that it's just kids that
Good place to
needs to be
start.
addressed with.
You're gonna have some teachers, that aren't gonna buy into it.
Yeah.
You are.
Well, that's my.
You are. I mean, because I've gone from a cell phone ban when they first started to what we have now. And during the cell phone ban, we had teachers that
Didn't
kids had
care.
cell phones in
Yeah.
class, and the teachers doing the
Yeah.
exact same thing. And we don't have an administrator that will hold the teacher accountable.
So the administrators do need to be on board.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the reasons I think it'd be good to have the administrators involved, because if they help develop that policy.
Yeah.
And the teachers are probably letting them use this as a time killer, a filler, and say, okay,
Yes.
whenever you.
I got all my work done.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And these numbers.
So I did.
I've done it.
Yeah, these numbers are mostly talking about girls, but because of the prevalence of boys on YouTube and TikTok, it's probably going to impact the boys more than we realize.
I see some updated numbers.
Yeah, but yeah, I've looked, and this just came out. It takes a long time.
Input from Tascos and Dalhart as well.
Yeah,
They would check in and see what results they've had, what successes and
what their policies
non-successes
were.
they've had,
Right. And where they struggled with it.
and be able to bring something back. We can do this. This is a good discussion. This is something that we've been needed to have this conversation for a while. I think it's very, very important.
I would like to just briefly, I mean, even for our online watchers, just affirm what Mrs. Dragelis is saying about the research. We are now starting to see some of this research come out, and it is concerning. The effects of the smart appliances on our kids' brains, we can't ignore it. And I think we as schools should step in and at least work towards doing what we think is right for our kids. Now, how we do that and to what extent we do it, that's what we have to discuss. But yeah, I get concerned when I start seeing these reports as well.
I'll use Jeff's answer to my point earlier. I'll say AI.
Just ask AI. What do we do?
Yeah.
How do we get rid of you?
Yeah.
I bet it'd tell you.
It would.
Google's AI
It definitely
broken?
would give you an
AI's
answer.
broken. It
You
would
can choose
tell
whether you want to follow it or not, because it might be.
It might be screwy.
It might be.
Okay.
Thank you. That was a good discussion, you guys.
The third Monday would be the 17th of July. I'm sorry. I'm on June. The third Monday would be the 15th of July.
Did you put that calendar in there?
I did, but that's for next year.
Okay.
Starts
Okay.
Yeah. We are
Third
not
Monday is
here.
15th.
Wait, third.
Everybody
I'm
good
not
on the
here.
15th?
I'm not here the 15th. But y'all can carry on without me.
Oh, I'm not here on the 15th. I'm at church camp.
We could just come see you.
Do what?
We could have a remote meeting. We'll just come see you.
Why
You
not?
just phone
In
in.
Austin.
I'm sure you have a
Lake
room.
Travis. We're gonna be in Lake Travis.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I'm all for us meeting down there. I'm at y'all.
I've done Austin in August.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true.
It's not very fun in July.
Maybe July is awesome.
Yeah.
It's not very fun in July. It is, but it's hot.
Would you be somewhere where you'd have online capability?
On my phone.
I won't be. We'll be
From a Zoom
driving.
meeting standpoint then?
Yeah.
We'd be able to, depending on timing and schedule and whatnot,
Yes. Yeah.
but, because we're, the way
Could we
our
look at the
agendas
22nd?
are written now, it allows for that. Maybe
Yeah,
share
you
share
can.
link.
I could probably, I could
And
probably
Richard,
do
if you're
something like that.
gone, probably be somewhere where you can zoom in. You say you might be here, might not.
I should be able to zoom in.
I'll be in a
Be
car
on-
with
do we-
kids,
do we wanna make it the
so
22nd?
I will not
That's the
likely
fourth one.
Zoom in. I
Yeah,
tried that
I
once, I
hope
couldn't
so.
hear
Yeah,
y'all.
that'll be
That's what I'm
tonight.
saying. That's what-
Before we
No, no, no.
come back,
It's
so
okay.
I should be,
15th will work.
I should be available. Probably.
Plan a trip first.
I get all this rolling, I'm gonna miss the meeting. I gotta trust you guys, I guess. Jeez.
As good as any other night for me, so. Okay. We will write it down for there, and if something really blows up, well, let's switch. the
Yeah, we can move it around.
I should be back the 22nd, but work on that whole week.
Are you
Going to see Turns.
close to good cell signal?
I don't know, we're driving to Illinois.
There's no cell phones, cell signal in Illinois.
It's more the drive between the two. We're
Seeing nothing else on the agenda, this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
I appreciate
guys.
you